So as many of you guys are probably aware, Microsoft just held their annual not E3 conference and showed off a bunch of new games. And by a bunch of new games, I mean pre-rendered trailers for games with maybe a second or two of actual genuine gameplay. Now this is honestly all fine and dandy, this is par for the course, and I'll be the first to admit they did show off some interesting things. The main thing I noticed when looking through all the announcements, however, was a severe and disappointing lack of release dates. I feel like this has been a trend in the gaming industry for a number of years now, announcing games with little information about when the games are actually going to come out. So today, I wanted to take a look into some of these announcements that were made, and maybe even see why these games are being announced so goddamn early. So to kick things off, I figured we might as well take a look at some of the things that were announced, and look at what, if any, release information was given during their recent conference. I'll start off with one of the bigger announcements, the new Call of Duty game. I think I'll go out on a limb here and say that I would be shocked to find out if anyone actually had any doubts about Call of Duty missing a yearly release, but the fact it's going to be on Game Pass day one is pretty monumental for a game like Call of Duty. The fact that Activision is so fucking greedy to have the gall to charge what they do for decade-old COD titles on Steam, and to have this new title available day one for free just for anyone with a Game Pass subscription is pretty crazy. The fact that this game is going to be 300 gigabytes, however, is going to be a topic of discussion for another day. Now, this is one of the rare instances of the conference giving a specific release date for something announced, which is going to be October 25th of this year. Next up, I would say, is the title that and I'm sure most other people are going to be excited for, Doom: The Dark Ages, the third game in the current Doom 2016 style, and to say I'm excited is a bit of an understatement. Doom 2016 and Eternal are some of my favorite first-person shooter titles of all time, and this new entry looks like it's going to be using the bones of those games and taking it to new and exciting places. Dragons, demons, and a chainsaw shield? I'm fucking in day one, baby. I just hope it has a caramel and dancing mode like this stupid-ass meme I can't seem to get out of my head. Now, while what they showed off looks great, I'm slightly concerned for this game due to the issues between id Software and the previous two games' composer, Mick Gordon. I'm not going to go into all of it here and now, but I will say that things didn't seem to end well after Doom Eternal, and I'm highly doubtful he will return for this game. The soundtrack in these games are arguably as important as anything else gameplay related, so not to have Mick come back is definitely a damn shame. I hope they're able to work something out, and if not, I'm curious to see what they will end up managing to come up with for the soundtrack, coming in 2025. When in 2025? Who fucking knows? And this is just the beginning of either vague as fuck release dates or no release dates at all. Up next, Gears of War E-Day. Now, this one is interesting because I feel like the general consensus is that people are excited for this title. I'm not personally the biggest Gears of War fan, but I've played through pretty much all of them sans 5, but it's interesting because I can recall people didn't care too much for the previous Gears of War prequel game. I guess people either just have short-term memories or they just want to wash the taste of Gears 5 out of their mouth. Also, quick thing, the fact that they decided to go with Gears 5 as the title and drop the of war portion is just stupid as fuck, and whoever decided that should be fired, either from the company or in the back of the head. Anyways, this game looks fine enough, looks basically just like more Gears 1 through 3, and hey, would you look at that, shockingly, no fucking release date. When can I play it? Who knows. Next up, I wouldn't even call this an announcement, but we got another trailer for the new Fable game. Again, no firm release date out of just, you'll get it next year, fuck off. And it's not even an announcement, they announced this game with trailer 4 goddamn years ago, and they just left us all undelivered since that, and then radio silence. I think that it's funny that this isn't even the only time that happened during this conference. They did the exact same thing with Perfect Dark, originally announced back in 2021 with zero info on when it would actually be released, only to go radio silent for 3 years, then giving us the second announcement trailer here, again with zero release date. Now I get them not wanting to have to delay the game, but maybe just wait until you're closer versus giving us a new trailer every few years until it's actually done. Next up announced was State of Decay 3. Now I did play through the first one and enjoyed it enough, never got really into number 2, so this is not really something I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for, but I mean if you like zombie games it seems fine enough. Again, not even a broad release window, just coming soon. And speaking of sequels to things with no release date, there's another Dragon Age coming, God knows when. Now I remember people not really liking the last one, and I'd be willing to put my money on them not liking this one either. Then we got some DLC announced for a game that a lot of people didn't like when it came out, and apparently coming sometime later this year. Next is some DLC for a game that a lot of people didn't really like when it came out, and apparently coming sometime next year. And would you believe it? Next up, in a shocking turn of events, something with a hard release date, however the downside being it's just some DLC for a game that a lot of people didn't really like when it came out. Jesus Christ, they really are doing whatever they can to get people back into these games. Whatever, I mean, if people like it and play it, that's all that really matters. Now, I'm not going to go over everything else announced because I believe that you and I both have better things to be doing with our lives, but a short recap so so far. Yearly COD announced with a firm release date. New Doom sequel game sometime next year. New Gears of War prequel game, who knows. New Perfect Dark, no clue on release date. New Fable sequel, probably next year, but I don't think so. Metal Gear Solid remake, remaster, I don't know. Again, no solid release date. DLC this year, probably. DLC next year, and DLC definitely this year. Now, I feel as a consumer, it's really hard to want to get excited for something if you announce it and it doesn't come out for a couple of years. And I can understand this from a developer standing. They don't want to set a release date too early just in case things need to get shifted around, and they don't want to crunch their employees into an early grave for the sake of releasing some fucking game on time. But I do know one of the reasons for lack of release dates is probably just due to the fact that crunch has been so bad in years past, and it turns the workplace pretty toxic. Now, I'm gonna be the first to advocate for no crunch in game development, but I mean, I think wouldn't it just be smarter to wait until the game is about 6 months away from release where you can just announce it, go nuts to butts crazy with marketing, and just blow everyone away, rather than a slow drip feed of news every other June until the game eventually comes out to disappointing reviews or just ends up getting canceled? I personally don't see the point of announcing shit when it's just so far in advance. Like, y'all remember when Elder Scrolls 6 was announced? Well, we haven't heard shit from Bethesda about the game in years, and who knows when that's even coming out, which is super strange because in the past Bethesda has had some great rollouts, and by great I mean we haven't had to wait too long. Just off the top of my head, Fallout 76, and while that wasn't a great game from what I've heard, was announced and released like 6 months later. Same with Fallout 4. These games had a reveal and then 6 months of marketing to get people ready for the game. Now to me, that's just the fucking perfect amount of time to get the general population on board with a new release. Not this bullshit announcing something and then waiting half a decade for it to ever be mentioned again. And I know Microsoft isn't in the best position this console lifecycle, with PlayStation selling nearly twice as many units of PS5s than Xboxes, and they're probably just trying to get people excited for what's to come. So I can understand them wanting to pull out all the stops and announce basically everything they got cooking in the oven right now. But if you announce something in the hopes of having someone buy a console, but I'm gonna wait when I know the game is actually coming out before getting the console. I have a good buddy of mine who's still playing on his Xbox One, and that motherfucker is on life support. But he told me he has no desire to get a new console until GTA 6 is coming out. And I feel as though that's how a fair amount of people out there operate. But then again, the people out there that don't have new consoles yet aren't really the people who are tuning into these games showcases, watching E3 shows like the rest of us. But as a consumer, how am I supposed to care about something and keep up to date if you announce it when all I know is, well, it'll show back up eventually and I'll be sure to be on the lookout for it in the next 1 to 3 years. So whether it's to prevent crunch, the need to change things due to studio interference, or because they're announcing a game where there's like 7 dudes working on the game in a closet somewhere, there's a fair amount of excuses, and I'm not going to pretend anyone besides the game studios themselves working on the games have the answer. But I'm curious about what your thoughts are. Do you guys like seeing stuff this early on in development stages, or would you rather just be like me and have something be announced like 6 months before it comes out? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you ain't sick of me yet, but that'll do for today. Till next time.